This week in a conversation, I have the honor to receive scholar, distinguished professor, historian, Mary Palmer. We're going to be talking about her latest book, Boyington Oak, A Grave Injustice, based on the life of a young man by the name Charles Boyington, who was accused of killing his best friend. He was arrested and put to trial, and without tangible evidence, he was convicted and later hung, executed. Interesting story. But before we get, and this happened in 1834 in Alabama. But before we get into this video, let me ask you once more that it's important to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you do, don't forget to click the notification bell so that way every time a video is posted, it'll go directly into your portable. So let's get started. Again, my name is Ardain Isma, and I'm here this evening with an impeccable author, a scholar, historian, distinguished professor, Mary Palmer. We're going to be talking about her wonderful book titled Boyington Oak, A Grave Injustice. So Mary, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting.
Yes, before we get into this interesting story, so Mary, could you please tell the viewers of CSMS Magazine who is Mary S. Palmer?
Okay, just something about myself, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a native Mobilian, and I've had the opportunity to travel a lot. I've published 16 books in different genres. I've had sci-fi and biographies and fantasy and other things. But this one interested me quite a bit. I tried to use meetings with people in my travels. I've been to every state in the US and to every continent except Antarctica, and that's a little too cold. But anyway, I try to use people that I meet and, take from them stories. Of course, right. This one is creative nonfiction. So right. All the facts are true, but you do need to remember it's creative. There's no way we can know exactly what a young man said in 1833, but you try to stay as close to the vernacular of the culture as possible. Correct. And then you have to set up some scenes. So you have a lot to work with, but everything that's factual is documented. The things that came from newspapers, and it took a while to research. And there's only one other book written about this, and it was written in 1949. Really? The name of it was The Tree, and it was not broadly distributed. So okay, that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. I have a magazine article coming out in Alabama Heritage in April. Okay. Deal with this book, so people may be interested in that.
Okay. So let's dive into the story.
Okay. In 1833, a young man named Charles R. Boynton came to the Gulf Coast. He worked his way down here on a boat called the Cahaba. And he was already a printer, which is quite an accomplishment at age 19. Right. It's like getting a college degree to become a printer. Mm-hmm. But he did that somehow. He was from Connecticut, Litchfield and New Haven. Right. And when he got here, the man on the boat, the captain of the boat, wanted him to stay. He said, I can promote you and get you a good career, but he wanted to come and work in the growing city. The city was only 3,190 people population then. Right. But it was growing. So he did come, and he lived in a boarding house, and he took care of one young man who was also a printer for a while. And then he took care of his roommate who had consumption, which is TB. And he roomed with this guy. Nowadays, you couldn't do that because it'd be too contagious. But anyway, that was the person, Nathaniel Frost, that he was accused of killing in the Mobile's Church Street graveyard. Uh-huh. and it happened that the person was stabbed several times. Boyington was getting ready to leave town anyway. He was going back to see his mother, and he had
to see his mother in Connecticut.
In Connecticut.
Okay.
And he had debts. He was a gambler, and he had debts, and he, lost his job, so he was not in very good shape. And he borrowed and begged from everybody he could. It was a little bit of a shady past, but not a murderer. And he said he did not do it, and that he would be vindicated. He kept saying that he didn't do it, and a tree would grow, an oak tree would grow from his grave. Well, of course, in Mobile, as you probably know, there are lots of oak trees and acorns everywhere. The first time I went down to the site of this, which is right next to the Mobile Public Library, there was 1 million oaks there. And I thought about that, but I thought, well, this one has grown. It did grow right away after his burial there. And it's been there 187 years. Well, with all the storms we have, any tree could be felled. I took pictures of every tree in that section of Potter's Field in the graveyard because I didn't know what, but I found out anyway, and that's kind of makes it a little more mysterious. And people say they can listen to it and hear voices. I didn't hear any.
Let me ask you something, Mary. How deep is the superstition and
very good
in that area?
Very good question. This is Mobile's oldest and most famous legend, and it has survived through the years. So that tells you something. I mean, people go to see it. It was on a tree trail. The funny thing is that brings up this statement that it never was a marker there since 1971. There was one in 1905. That somebody, this is strange, somebody who was friends with Nathaniel Frost, the murdered man, had that marker put up there just to prove this guy was buried there that had killed their friend, that they believed had killed their friend. Okay, but we got a marker after forming the Boyington Oak Society. Actually, somebody from a big company sent me a note and said that their job was to help find people who needed markers. So applied for the grant and got the marker and got it established and put up there. It's all in place. So that at least tells people what's there, because there's tours that go around that area, but they didn't, the guide knew what it was, but it was nothing saying this is really this tree.
Okay.
It's Pomeroy Foundation. I wanted to give them a little plug in Syracuse, New York.
Okay, understand. Charles Barrington, arriving in town, also had fallen in love with the daughter of the Baron, a young woman named Rose de Fleur. And her parents did not approve of the relationship.
Mainly the father.
Do you think that his death or the conspiracy against him?
Oh, okay. You thought maybe the Baron did it?
Yeah, at least some connection to
I wouldn't doubt it. In the back of my book, have you gotten it or read it or what? The book. Okay, in the back. I did the what ifs, and in there.
I know you said what if,
If the Baron did it, he had left and gone back to France, and so he was not before the murder. After the murder, he left and went back to France. But and I tried my best to find information about their burial. I called all the archives and went places, and there's no record of the mother or the daughter the Baron's wife or daughter being buried here. So I couldn't find out what happened to them exactly, but I did know that she married later, much later after his death, but that was not part of this book, that was too far in the future. But it's highly possible that he just had a way. He would have had the money to get rid of the young man. And they were from a Catholic family, and that he did even go, even though Charles claimed to be an atheist, but he did go to the was the cathedral then, not the one that's here now, but he went there with her just to be with her.
Right.
She had a chaperone that, would go with them places. The chaperone was on Rose's side. She wanted to let the romance flourish.
Well, let me ask you something here. We are in 1834.
Right.
So, and also Mobile was still a small town.
Yes.
Just like you said, was growing.
Mm-hmm.
And the mentality of, I would say, expedient justice or injustices, I would say, was part of the culture.
And Mobile was, and still to a certain degree, has little cliques. And so they didn't want a Mobilian to be found guilty. They wanted a scapegoat.
Okay. That was my question, dude.
And besides, he was a Yankee.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, they had a big culture of that. And maybe in some instances it still exists, but I mean, then it was really a division before the Civil War.
Right.
But still, there was that division, that people, Southerners wanted their own little culture.
Uh-huh.
So it's highly possible. Now, it's kind of interesting how the Barron got here. They, after Napoleon had Waterloo, what was that, 1816, I believe.
Right.
Then people, I don't know if all over the country, but people around in the South, they thought these leaders might try to come here and start some trouble and take over. So they formed what was called the Vine and Olive Colony. And
right.
I think it was Demopolis, Alabama. I'm not positive, but anyway, they brought people like the Barron here, but it didn't work. They couldn't grow vines and olives, so he moved to Mobile. And I think probably, and this is just speculation, the goal was to eventually maybe move to New Orleans. If he didn't make it here in Mobile, but that was the story on them. And it's kind of interesting that he kept, after the conviction, he kept protesting his innocence.
Yes.
And there's several things there that was justifying that.
Right.
In the first place, he had a jury, 2 jurors that were unqualified. One was a British citizen, and that's and the other believed he was guilty before the trial. And then, he had circumstantial evidence only. Nobody saw what happened. There was a slave girl that said that she saw it, and this is documented, but at that time, she wouldn't have been heard in court. And she would
at that time, they wouldn't allow a slave to testify in court. Yeah.
And he claimed, too, that they had his name wrong. It was Charles R Boynton. He didn't get very far with that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's several other things. The 2 deathbed confessions were the big deals. Because one was the landlord who confessed 12 years deathbed after the crime. And then the other was the girlfriend of Frost that Boyington didn't like. And she confessed, and she claimed she had some evidence, and I won't tell all of it, but she had a deathbed confession to the chief of police. She called him to her bedside. So that's pretty interesting,
Very, very interesting.
That's taken seriously. Because I know we have terrorists today that will kill themselves to take out a bunch of people, but that's not exactly the case with a deathbed confession. They don't have much to gain when they're
exactly.
They didn't have that mentality anyway.
Right.
They thought differently. But by the way, I wanted to tell you that Mike Turner, whom you had on your show, he wrote a song for this, and Boyington's Oak. Did he tell you or not?
He made reference to that, but there was another song also. It was Tale of the Blues, I believe.
Yeah, that's for another book. That was for Mississippi Mojo, which just came out. Mississippi Mojo and Murder. That one just came out.
Okay.
But, no, this was, I met him at Fairhope, Alabama Library, and he said he'd been trying to write a song about this.
Really?
And when he read the book, he actually wrote it. Well, it isn't in the book because it was after the fact, but he comes and plays it at presentations. And it makes a nice touch.
I mean, such a wonderful man and a great poet.
Uh-huh.
Turner, yeah.
And
But Mary, as a historian, let me ask you something.
okay.
Could you please educate the audience the makeup of the demographic in that Mobile area, all the way up probably to New Orleans, the demographic in 1834 and that area.
Mm-hmm. What about it?
Could you please educate the audience about the makeup of the population? I mean, I know there were French Huguenots immigrated from Canada. There were also French settlers who also immigrated.
Yes. We were under 5 flags in Mobile. So we had Spanish, we had French, we had British, and we had the Confederates, and we had the US. So we've had all of that, all those flags that we've been under, and different times, different ethnic groups had more power than others. So, but, and of course we had kind of a pretty big Cajun influence because of New Orleans and people here from there nowadays, but back then it would have been sparser, of course. Wouldn't be quite as much, maybe a mixture, but not kind of divided up in sections depending on who was in rule.
There's a group also they always love to talk about when it comes to this area, the Creoles.
Mm-hmm.
How big was the Creole population back in 1834, at least all the way up to the 1850s?
I don't know how big it was, but I do know that there's one place called Mont Louis Island, which is really part of Mobile. Okay. And they were Creoles that owned it. And some of them might have been slaves of a sort. I don't know all the details, but they had all that property left to them. So it's still basically like that. They still own it. Okay. Yeah, this far into the future. That's true. And of course, we have the culture of the Creoles and the cooking. And
I know.
We have. I kind of wanted to write down. Of course, nowadays, right now at this point in time, Mobile's big into the king cake.
I know.
You know the story of the king cake?
No, I don't know.
Okay, well, I don't know how it started. I just know what it is. And you make this cake and it's kind of different from other cakes. I've never made one. I can't tell you all the ingredients, but there's a little baby in there. And whoever gets the baby when they're serving the king cake has to have the next party.
Really? Okay. That's a wonderful tradition though.
Yeah, it's a nice tradition. And then of course we have the gumbo, and you're probably familiar with West Indies salad. Yeah,
but also, Mary, they told me, I think it was Mike told me that the Mardi Gras was originated from Mobile, not necessarily from
very true. And we're just now, after hundreds of years, getting credit.
Really?
I have looked it up, and actually the floats that New Orleans used in their first parade, they either borrowed or bought from us in Mobile, and we transported them over there to New Orleans to use. But for years and years, they got all the credit because they were bigger.
As I know, speaking of that, also you have a very busy schedule. You're scheduled to have a presentation on February 12th at 10 a.m. at the Genealogical Society in Foley, at the Foley Library there.
Yeah.
And I know also you have so many other activities on May 14th and May 15th.
That's the big thing. Well, I have, can you see this if I hold it up?
Yeah, just hold it up. I can see it. Just raise it up a little bit. Raise it. Exactly, I can see it. Yeah.
That's the back. And on here, there's a constitutional lawyer from Texas who said this should never have happened in Alabama. Mm-hmm. And then I have the flyers. I did want to talk about the flyers that for the presentation, for the festival that's coming up. And this, let's see, which one? This one is, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it. Mm-hmm. I can see the flyer. Mm-hmm.
And it includes 4 things: the book, the autographed book, the play itself, a tour of Oakley, which is historical, and a tour on a trolley of the places that Boyington went or was, had connection with. And people really love that. And this year we're going to add one thing. Couldn't do it last year, kind of because of COVID. We're going to have boarding house biscuits because he lived in a boarding house, and
Really? Okay.
so jam delicious preserves.
Now we get into the cuisine right now.
And
Okay.
these are all made with fresh fruit. We had it.
Wow.
We had it for Mississippi Mojo launch a week or so ago, and people loved that.
Uh-huh.
So, and this is the other one. This one includes, if you do this, you do it through the Battle House, and you get the same thing I mentioned, plus a breakfast, plus parking, and people come and stay. And this year they've added another night. The package is $50 for the first one I showed you.
Okay.
But if you want to buy just one part of it, like the tour or the book or the play, you can do that.
Okay.
This one is the whole package.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's $329. The package, as I said, is $50 by itself. But I thought, well, that would be, some people who come from the far would rather stay another night and go to the battleship and do some other things in Mobile.
Exactly.
It's
such an historical place to visit, you know.
Yeah. And we had another thing that I think you'll find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We started out talking to John Tyson, who was a former DA in Mobile,
Mm-hmm.
and we found in our research that his great-grandfather tried a case after that woman confessed 60 years after the crime, and it was in Haneyville, Alabama, and John's great-grandfather had the case, and the opponent of J.C. Richardson, another attorney, he told them, he said, you can't any longer just judge things on circumstantial evidence alone.
Right.
So it changed the way that was handled. It changed the way the jurors were chosen.
Right.
This case, not just here, but other places, it had a spread out effect. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's true.
And then Victor Gaston, who is a House of Representatives pro tem, he's taken this up to try to get the posthumous pardon. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been jumping through hoops. I had to go, first went down to the parole board in Mobile, just following the protocol, and asked them what they could do. And I was thinking, I hope nobody thinks I'm here because of somebody else I'm trying to get out. And then they couldn't do anything. Then I wrote to the governor and found out you have to take it through the legislature. It has to go through the legislature. So Victor Gaston has gotten it through 2 readings in front of the House, and then the full House has to do it. Then it goes to the Senate. So I hope he can accomplish it. It moves slowly.
Yeah. Then he would be even 187 years later, he can still be exonerated.
Would be vindicated, like he said. I said sooner or later, and this is later. But,
yes.
We're just hoping to get that done, because I think it's not to say he was innocent, but just to say that he should have had a mistrial. So
that's true.
That's easier to prove with evidence that we've got. But I think that Victor will do all that he can, and you have to just hope.
With the activism of someone like Mary Palmer,
it's really,
could be done.
It's really the group that gets the credit, because you don't do this by yourself.
Let me ask you a question, very important question, because I know we're getting, we could talk for, because I love history, I'm fascinated by that. Southern literature, he's always, at least internationally, seen through great literary works, people like Harper Lee or... Now, but is there any other great, because I know Southern literature is one of the best in the United States. Now, is there anyone that Mary, who probably, could be as great, acclaim as they did for Harper Lee and other folks, but that we don't know about?
I can't, nobody comes to mind like that, but I did really like Harper Lee's, and the goal is to follow in that. Mobile has no such event like like a Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. And I've seen it at Monroe, and I've been, another one that I liked was The Miracle Worker up in, I believe it's Tuscumbia, Alabama. But a person individually, I don't know if I can really think of anybody that would be in that category. You know?
Okay, I got you.
Because both of those people are so wonderful. It blows my mind how people can teach people to play a musical instrument, but how anybody like Anne Sullivan taught Helen Keller how to talk, to communicate. I don't know. I mean, that's way beyond what I can understand. It's just
such a historical place, city like Mobile, Alabama. If I were to take my wife right now to Mobile, and we decided to go to a wonderful restaurant with Mobile cuisine, with a local cuisine, which one you would recommend, Mary?
Oh, well, I think you'd really like Winsel's. Winsel's is the place that's been around a long, long time. They have seafood and they have the crab craws, and they've been down there on Dolphin Street downtown, and they have gumbo and all of that. And then I think you might want to go to Mobile's oldest restaurant, which is the Dewdrop Inn. And it's, have you ever been there? Have you been to Mobile before?
No, I've never been to Mobile because but I have a cousin of mine who did his medical residency in Mobile, Alabama, years ago. So
those are two places, and then new places is Dolphin's Restaurant, which you can go. It's on in the 30s floor, 33 or 34, and it's right downtown opposite the Battle House, and you can see all of Mobile. It's the windows are all around. It's a panoramic view, and the food is. Yeah.
I can see it already. I'm visualizing it right now as you're saying it.
It's amazing to what you can see from there. But now that's a newer place, and of course there's lots of other places, but those three come to mind quickly.
Okay, my last question, because I know as a prolific writer as you are, and I know prolific writers never stop writing. Any other literary work that we can expect from you in the near future?
Okay, right now I'm working on, with Paula Witt, a friend of mine, a librarian. We have just put out a book called Mississippi Mojo and Murder, a tale of the blues. And it has to do with blues music. You mentioned a little of that. And Mike and I wrote 2 blues songs for it, and he had to do the music. I can't do anything about music. But and then we were doing a sequel now. That one's out. So we're doing a sequel called Mississippi Mojo and Devilry in the Delta. And then we plan at least one more, but those are just 3 in a sequel.
Is that also a historical novel?
No, it is not. It is just fiction, but it's based on people like the famous blues singer Robert Johnson and, people of that nature. But we wanted our own songs for it to just fit this. And the clue to the murder is in one of the songs. So,
okay. I'm just going to say it's been such a wonderful pleasure to have this great conversation with historian, scholar, distinguished professor, Mary Palmer.
Thank you very much for having me.